Dr. T.V. Geeta, Professor, Department of Computer Science, College of Engineering, Guindy, Anna University. Her special interest, Artificial Intelligence and Natural Language. She has published more than 143 articles in national and international journals. She has guided around 7 PhD students. She has got Young Scientist Award from Government of Tamil Nadu in the year 2000, Chief Minister's Special Mention Award in the year 2002, and Woman of Excellence by Rotary Club in the year 2003.
Welcome to the UGC lecture series. In this lecture, we are going to talk about concurrency part 2. We have already spoken about concurrency in the last lecture also. So, here we are going to explain another concept associated with concurrency, which is deadlock, and then we are going to explain how deadlock can be detected, and then we are going to outline the concept of time stamping. So, first let us look at deadlock. Now, deadlock is a concept that is associated with generally with operating system, where two processes try to share the same processing unit. Now, here deadlock occurs because of the two data items when a single data item is read by the more than one transaction. So, deadlock is here that way. Deadlock can be prevented a little by locking. It prevents some processes, some problems. Not deadlock, some other problems, but it can cause other problems. So, sometimes a set of transactions can all be waiting for each other so that locks can be released. It is like saying this: I want to have a lock, but that but if I want to have that lock, but I have another lock with me. Now, another person wants this lock, my lock to be released, but I will release this only when the other person releases his lock, and so on. So, that's the thing is, a set of transaction can all be waiting on each other to release their locks. So, this situation is called deadlock. Example of the last update which we have discussed in the last class. Now, here read x is equal to x minus 5, transaction 1 is reading x. Now, transaction 2 is reading x, this is allowed. Now, transaction 2 is writing x. Now, before this commit, transaction 2 is asking for write. Now, this transaction 2 cannot write. Now, if it cannot write, it will not commit, and if this is not done, this will not do, and so on. So, these transaction T1 and T2 are waiting for locks. Now, this lock cannot be got if there is a read here, and this cannot commit until it gets this write. For this write to be got, this has to be released, and so on. So, you understood the problem of the deadlock. So, here read allowed. Now, here write needs this read to be released. For this read to be released, this write has to be done and the commit has to be done. But for this write to be done, this read is requested. But for this read to finish, this write and commit has to be finished. So, this is the deadlock problem. So, this makes last update worse, as I already explained. So, here you have an S lock, this is again explaining in detail, this is an S lock. S lock means shared lock, and here also a shared lock. Now, transaction T1 and T2 have an S lock on the data item x. Now, here this transaction T1 is asking for an X lock on the data item x, but it has to wait because this S locks held by T2. Now, X lock x needs to wait for this S locks to be released, again it waits. So, what happens? A deadlock occurs. This is waiting for this to release, this is waiting for this to release, and so a deadlock occurs. So, this deadlock is also known as deadly embrace, and locking, the locking which we did to ensure concurrency is the same. This locking is introducing this problem of deadlock. So, application A puts read lock on table x, application B puts read lock on table x. Now, A requests write lock to x, has to wait, B requests write lock to x, has to wait. So, these two are waiting for an event that is not going to occur, and that is why it is called deadlock. This happens when two or more transactions have locked a common resource and each waits for the other to unlock that resource. Unless the DBMS, that is the management system, database management system, intervenes by maintaining a matrix of usage, this transaction will continue to wait indefinitely. It will never release, because this is waiting for that to release, that is waiting for this to release, and so on. So, how do we handle it? So, deadlock is a problem that occurs. This problem has occurred because we have introduced locks in order to tackle concurrency. So, how do we tackle this? Mainly it is tackled by the database management system and partly by the programmer. So, so far we have covered locking called pessimistic concurrency control. Exclusive locks are needed for all records until it is complete. newer approach to concurrency control called versioning, or it is called as optimistic approach, that most of the time other users do not want the same record, or if they do, they only want to read but not write the record. So, this is an assumption we are making, an optimistic assumption we are making. So, first let us look for how to detect deadlocks, that is the important. Before we do anything, we should know whether deadlock has occurred or not. For that we do deadlock detection. Now, deadlock detection is done with what is called as wait for graphs. So, in this wait for graphs, each transaction is a vertex, and an arc from x to y means that x is waiting for a lock from y. So, for example, deadlock is a cycle, and if there is a cycle in this wait for graph, then it is called a deadlock. This is a deadlock because T1 is waiting for T3, T3 is waiting for T2, and T2 is waiting for T1. So, this is a deadlock. So, let us look at deadlock and how it is tackled. So, I have here 3 transactions and 3 data items T1, T2, T3, and I have 3 data items X, Y and Z. Okay. So, now how do I fill this table? Depending on whether it is read or write, I have an S lock or an X lock. So, first T1 transaction T1 is reading X, so it requires an S lock. Now, transaction T2 is reading a Y, so it requires a S lock again. Now, T1 is writing X, so this S changes to X here. Now, T2 is reading X. Okay. Now, when T2 is reading X, it requires a shared lock, but it cannot get a shared lock, but T1 already has a exclusive lock. So, it is waiting. Now, T3 is reading Z, that it can do, so it gets a read. Now, T3 is writing Z, that is also fine, it changes from S lock to X lock. Now, look at this T2, before I go further, T2 is waiting for T1 to finish, that is why we have, remember here we have an arc from X to Y means that X is waiting for a lock from Y. So, here as I already told you, this is an S lock, this is an S lock, this is an X lock. Now, T2 wants to read X, so it is waiting for T1 to finish. Okay. Now, T3 has an S, T3 has an X. Now, T1 reads Y, T1 wants to read Y, that is allowed. Now, T3 wants to read X, T3 wants to read X, T3 wants to read X. So, T3 is waiting for T1 again, and then T1 wants to write Y. So, again T1 wants to write Y. For that, this also has a S lock. So, this cannot be changed to an X lock. So, there is a T1 wait. So, now you have a cycle between T1 and T2 transaction, and a deadlock has occurred on data item. This T2 waiting for T1 is on data item X, and T1 waiting for T2 is on data item Y. So, here you have a cycle, that is a deadlock situation. So, remember you can wait for different data items also. Here in this case X is Y, T1 is waiting for T2 is waiting for T1 to release X, and T1 is waiting for T2 to release Y. So, 2 data items, but 2 transactions. So, that is about how to detect. So, you have a wait for graph, and then you form this table and draw the graph. The wait for graph has a cycle, then you know that there is a deadlock. Now, how do you solve this or resolve the deadlock? So, once we have found a deadlock, we need to fix it. One transaction that is involved in the cycle is designated as the victim. So, T1 and T2 are waiting for each other. One of them have to give up or become a victim. So, the victim is rolled back and restarted so that the locks are released. So, how to choose a victim? So, between, for example, in the previous case, how to choose between T1 and T2. So, here do not choose a transaction that has been going for a long time. So, suppose this is the 15th operation or 30th operation, between one is 30th operation, one is the 3rd operation, then choose the one that is, do not choose the one that has been going on for a long time, choose the one that has been going on for a shorter time. And do not choose a transaction that has many updates. If you choose a transaction that has many updates, everything has to be rolled back. And choose one, suppose you have T1, T2, T3, T4, and T1 is blocking T3, T2, T3 and T4, then choose T1. If T2 is blocking only T1 and T1 is blocking many, choose T1. So, this is how to choose between 2 processes that are transactions that are caught in a deadlock, which one do you choose to roll back. Now, that is about deadlock detection we did, deadlock resolution we did. Now, it is better to prevent deadlock. So, how do we prevent deadlock? For that, deadlock can arise even with 2-phase locking. So, deadlock is less of a problem than an inconsistent database, because we can detect and recover from deadlock. It would be nice if you can avoid it altogether, that is if you prevent it altogether. So, there are different types of 2-phase locking. One is conservative, all locks must be acquired before the transaction starts. So, it is hard to predict that what locks are needed at that point. Here you are doing a low lock utilization, because transaction can hold on to locks for a long time, but actually those locks are not used. So, before the transaction is started, all the data items that you want to read or write, locks are required, but you may not use it immediately, you may use it after a long time. So, lock utilization is very poor. Now, what we do, we impose an ordering on the resources. Transaction must acquire locks in this order, and so which order you have to acquire the locks, and transaction can be ordered on the last resource they locked. Depending on that, this prevents deadlock. That is, if Tx is waiting, that is transaction X is waiting for a resource from transaction Y, then that resource must come after all the transaction X's current locks, and all the arcs in the wait for graph point forwards, and so there are no cycles. So, for this, for you to do this must come after and last resource they have locked, you need to have a timestamp. So, we go to the next topic, which is called as timestamping. So, how do we do this? We have seen transaction can be run concurrently using a variety of techniques. One is two phase locking, one is wait for and precedence graphs, and then deadlock detection. An alternative to all these techniques is what is called timestamping. So, this requires less overhead in terms of tracking locks or detecting deadlock, and determines the order of transactions even before they are executed. So, you have a method of detecting which comes before which. So, each transaction has a timestamp Ts, and if Tx starts before Ty, then the timestamp of the transaction Tx is less than the timestamp of the transaction Ty. You can use a system clock, or you can use an incrementing counter to generate the timestamps. So, at any point in time, each resource has two timestamps, Rx, the largest timestamp of any transaction that has read X. So, this is a timestamp is associated with the resource, and the resource has R of X, the largest timestamp for any transaction that has read X, and Wx, the largest timestamp of any transaction that has written Y. So, these are the two Rx and Wx. Now, with this basic, so again I will just repeat. What we are trying to do is, we are trying to do timestamping. You have two types of timestamps. One is the transaction, each transaction is associated with the timestamp, and Ts, and if the Tx starts before Ty, then we say the timestamp of the transaction Tx is less than the timestamp of transaction Ty, and you can use either the system clock or you can use some counter. Now, at any point in time, now a resource is also associated with the timestamp. Now, what is this resource timestamp? Now, you say R of X, that means this is the largest timestamp of any transaction that has read X. So, this R of X will be equal to one of the timestamps associated with the transaction, but that transaction should have been the largest timestamp that has read X. Similarly, Wx is the largest timestamp of any transaction that has written Y. So, written X. So, X is a data item, and R is W is a write. So, associated with the write of that X, you have a timestamp, and the timestamp is the timestamp associated with any transaction that has written X. Let us look at the timestamp protocol. Now, if a transaction T tries to read X, if the timestamp of that transaction is less than Wx, T is rolled back and restarted with a later timestamp. If the timestamp of that transaction is greater than or equal to W of X, then the read succeeds, and we set R of X to be the maximum of this R of X and the timestamp that we have. So, this is the timestamp protocol. So, again I will repeat. So, if you have a transaction that wants to read X, you will check the timestamp associated with that transaction, and you will check whether it is less than write. If it is write, then you will roll back. So, that is the timestamp. Now, if it is writing, then what you will do, if it is less than, or if this is less than, then it is rolled back, otherwise the write succeeds and we set Wx to Ts of t. Now, let us take a small break and we will continue afterwards again discussing the timestamp protocol. Welcome back after the break. Now, before the break we were talking about timestamp protocol. Now, just to remind you, each transaction is associated with a timestamp, and also each data items read and write, you have R of X and W of X associated with the timestamp of the transaction that last read the item x and associated with the transaction that last wrote. Now, with that we have, now if a transaction t tries to read x, I already told you the transaction, if the transaction time of t is less than the w of x, that is the last written x, which means that this after this transaction has occurred, x has been written by some other transaction. So, this transaction is rolled back and you will restart it with a later transaction, timestamp. Now, if this is greater, that means nothing has been written or x has not been written after, has been written only before this transaction started. So, then the read succeeds and we set r of x to be the maximum of whichever it is, the r of x or t of x. Now, this is if it is reading. Now, if it is writing, if the transaction of t is less than w of x, the same explanation as before, and if it is less than read of x, then t is rolled back and restarted later. Otherwise, the write succeed and we set this w of x to say that this is a transaction that is written x latest. So, given t1 and t2, let us assume the transaction make alternate operations. So, one read x here, one read x here. Timestamps are allocated from a counter starting at 1. So, let us assume t1 goes first. So, what happens here is you have this is the rule that we already discussed. Now, read x, so first this happens. So, what happens is data item, again here you have read and write and associated with each of the data items, and you have the transaction timestamp associated with the transaction. So, at the first count value, x is read at time 1 and that is the timestamp associated with t1. We said we are going to do it alternatively. So, next we will read this x. Now, when this x occurs, x is read at time 2, that is the timestamp of transaction 2. So, that is what happens. Now, next is ry. So, ry again for each data item the r value changes because r of x is different from r of y. So, what happens, this r of y is 1, then this is r of y again 2. So, this is the timestamp associated with t1 and t2, that does not change after the transaction starts. Now, I have this. Now, here nothing happens, we are not doing a read, we are not doing a write. Now, here we have again z, again we are not doing a read, we are not doing a write. So, nothing changes. Now, what happens, we have a write y. Y has read a timestamp on it that is greater than t1. So, now what happens, y is look at this rule. Now, here you have r of y is equal to 2 and you have Ts of t, Ts of t is t1 is 1 is less than wx, t is rolled back, y has read a timestamp on it that is greater than t1's. So, what it does, I will repeat again, see t1 of Ts of t is less than wx, no, we do not have wx value of 1, but Ts of t that is 1, this is the first transaction, is less than r of x is r of y. R of y is 2. So, this is less than this. So, what do we have to do? We have to roll back this, okay, and we have to give it a timestamp that is greater. So, what happens? This is the new you roll back this and you get the new timestamp. Now, what happens? That is what we do here. Now, we go to write set. Now, write set, what happens? Z, there is no problem here, no problem here. So, you get a 2 there, which is the transaction T2's. Then again we go to read x. Now, when I get read x, I get 3 here now because this has been 3, and then read y also becomes 3 and this is okay. Now, this write gets 3. So, that is fine because read x is less than or equal to. So, I will again explain. So, look at the changes that happens. Basically, you have to look here, up to this no problem, you first you read x, then you read x. So, largest timestamp. So, that is why this 2 gets fixed. So, that is over. Now, you come to this, at this point you want to write, okay, you want to write y. Now, when you want to write y, the Ts of t1 which wants to write is less than r of y. R of y, Ts of t1 is less than r of y. So, this t has to be rolled back and you have to restart it with the later timestamp. So, you roll back this and you change the timestamp to 3. So, this is the new timestamp. Now, with this new timestamp you have to modify this because now the latest timestamp, largest timestamp that read x is now, okay, this after you do this is 3 and y is also 3. So, this is the value you get after this. So, the protocol means the transaction with the higher times will take precedence, equivalent to running transactions in order of their final time values. Transactions wait, so there is no deadlock. Problems, that is, long transaction might keep getting restarted by new transaction, and so there is a problem of starvation. That is, the same old people will keep on getting the thing, and the others have to keep on rolling back. So, rolls back old transaction which may have done a lot of work. So, this is the problem with time stamping. We always assume that the latest is the best. So, again the protocol means that transaction with higher times take precedence. This is a disadvantage of time stamping, and equivalent to running transaction in order of the final time values. So, transaction do not wait because there is no deadlock. So, there is no question of deadlock at all, because you are keeping on rolling back before anything actually happens, depending on this timestamp. These are the what it means. But because you are giving higher times and that takes precedence, what you do is you have long transaction that might keep getting restarted by new transactions. So, there is a question of starvation. This is similar to what happens in operating system also, where processes keep waiting like this. So, latest arriving processes get priority, that is what happens here. But another thing is, we are always rolling back earlier transactions. So, which means that they may have done more work than the later transactions. Why are we doing this? What is the logic behind this? We are assuming that a transaction that has read or written a data later, that is what we want to read. So, that is the reason why we are doing this. So, this is the time stamping algorithm. So, in this particular 3 or 4 lectures, what we have done is we have looked at asset properties, and there we have looked specifically at concurrency. And when we talked about concurrency, we spoke about schedules. What are the different type of schedules? Now, schedules, you remember, is the way in which the transactions are. If you have 4 or 5 transactions, how the transactions operations are ordered. If you are going to do T1 after that T2, there is no question of concurrency, it is just a serial operation. But what we are going to try to do here is we are trying to do concurrency in the transaction, at the same time we are trying to achieve serializability. For that we use the two-phase protocol, where transactions are allowed to acquire read locks or shared locks and exclusive locks, and by properly acquiring the shared locks and exclusive locks, you are able to ensure concurrency, at the same time serializability. Now, the issue here is that if you want to be very conservative, you can a transaction before it enters into doing any operations can acquire all the locks. If it needs to read a data item X, you can get a shared lock on that. If it wants to read write something else, it can get an exclusive lock on that. The issue here is that if it does that, some other transaction is prevented from getting this. So, this is a very conservative method of doing, and we are assuming that all the time all the data items are going to be used very often, not all the time, but at least very often. So, in order to avoid that, we go in for what is called as not conservative, optimistic. So, here what we do, we do not acquire all the locks, we acquire the locks as and when we want. Then we found that because of this locking that we introduced to tackle concurrency, we got what is called a deadlock problem. Now, the deadlock problem occurred because one transaction got the lock and got the one lock and needed another lock, which was processed by another transaction which needed the lock that the first one had. So, this became a cycle where one was keeping on waiting for the other to release, and that was waiting for this to release. So, that is a typical deadlock situation. So, as usual in any deadlock, even in operating system, we have deadlock detection, which we used the wait for graphs, and then because one transaction is waiting for the other, and then we also went to deadlock resolution, how we resolve by rolling back, and we also went for deadlock prevention. Then in order to do this deadlock, what we did was time stamping. So, what we ensured that the transaction, the time of the transaction is also considered as a timestamp associated with the transaction. We also associate a timestamp with the any data item, that is the reading of a data item and the writing of the data item, which the timestamp associated is equal to the transaction that did this, the timestamp of the transaction that did this, and with this with all these methodologies the transaction manager ensured the asset properties. So, we have looked at concurrency, we are going to look at recovery in the next lecture. So, we explained the concept of deadlock, we outlined deadlock detection, and then we described what is called as time stamping. First of all, this is actually true whether it is database management system concurrency control or whether it is process control in operating system. We talk about how deadlock detection is different from deadlock prevention. When a transaction is rolled back under timestamp ordering, it is assigned a new timestamp. Why is it assigned a new timestamp? It is assigned a new timestamp because now the transaction which was done before is all forgotten, everything is rolled back and you are starting the transaction newly. So, now the timestamp associated with this transaction is a time at which it starts newly. So, that is why that happens. And how is timestamping used in concurrency control? Timestamp is used in concurrency control by ensuring that the transaction that had problems were rolled back and that information is contained in the read of the timestamp associated with the resource. So, this is achieved by using the timestamping. So, thank you.